And a very good evening to you. Welcome to the Sunday Night Request Show with me, Barry Freestone. We have an absolutely huge audience this evening. Not for me, but for my very special guest whose career spans something like 5 decades, starting off by forming a girl group at the Perth Academy back in the 1960s, moving on to the Cyclones, then moving on to the Cyril Stapleton Band, and then becoming part of the Nocturnes. But then she became the voice in front of one of the best-selling groups of the 1970s. I am, of course, talking about Eve Graham. And I am, of course, talking about the New Seekers. And we have got Eve with us this evening. And if you want to make a request, you can do that. I will tell you how to later on. But what we're going to do is we're going to kick the show off almost straight away. And there is nothing else that we could kick it off with other than, obviously, this. So sit back and enjoy.
I'd like to build the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honey bees and snow white turtle doves. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to hold it in my arms and keep it company. I'd like to see the world for once all standing hand in hand and hear them echo through the hills for peace throughout the land. That's the song I hear. Let the world sing today. Oh yeah. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony, hand in hand, and I'd like to hold it in my arms and keep it company. That's the song I'd like to see the world, let the world sing, all standing hand in hand, and hear them echo through the hills for peace throughout the land. That's the song I'd like to teach it along. Let the world sing today. Oh no, I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony.
I'd like to teach the world to sing, of course, from the New Seekers, and my very special guest, Eve Graham.
Hello, Barry. Hello, everybody out there. After that lovely introduction, I don't think there's very much else I can tell you. You've reminded me of my past life.
Well, it's so lovely to have you here. When I told people that you were going to come in this evening, they were all incredibly excited because you've got such a huge following locally, because obviously you are local.
Yes, I was brought up in Perth. I left when I was 20, though, and it was quite a surprise to come back 40 years later and realise that people did remember me up here, because there's always that thing about, if you leave Scotland, that's you're gone forever. Yeah. and you're forgotten, and you're never going to be considered a star in Scotland because you left home. Yeah. But back in those days, back at the time I left, I just didn't know what else there was to do if you wanted to be in show business at all. And I'd been in the local groups, as you've already said. So I went to London, and it was either London or Glasgow, and I chose London.
So you're obviously very influenced by your father, so that must have been quite a musical upbringing.
Dad sang in the local concert parties, and when I was at school, so did I, with my two friends, Liz and I, from the academy. We formed a little trio, girl trio, and we sang. But, I mean, we were 15. It was fun. Never at that time did I consider that I could make a career of it. But it was because of that I then met up with some of the guys. We went to a dance. I think me and my friend Margaret Robb went to Ailith one night on a Friday night, and the band were people that we'd known from school. They got talking and they were looking for a girl singer, because if they had a girl singer, they could get to go to Germany. So I became their girl singer just so that the band could go to Germany. And I guess that was it for me. That was the start.
So you must have been rubbing shoulders with some really, what became very famous bands after that.
It was a funny path, mine, because I didn't start apart from the group here. But when I went to London, I was on the Mecca circuit with the Cyril Stapleton Orchestra. I went down for an audition and I got the job. He asked if I could come back in 2 weeks, and I said I couldn't because I didn't have enough money to stay in London. So he put me on trial, a 2-week trial, and paid for me to stay. Without Cyril being so understanding, I probably just would have gone back home with my tail between my legs, because I was 20 going on 12 back then,
Okay.
and it was a different time. Girls my age were different and a lot more naive. And he took me to the digs that the previous girl singer had, and I had this mother hen looking after me and making sure that I was all right. And that got me started, because that 2-week trial turned into a full-time job. I was able to phone home and say, I'm not coming back home. I got the audition and I'm staying. And that was that. Yeah.
So in a sense, as you were growing up, you were very much in the era where things were changing from heavy orchestral pieces to ballads into the period of rock and roll. And of course, when you went with the Cyril Stapleton band, it was... Explain to me what strict tempo dancing is. It sounds fairly obvious,
yes,
but
it was.
that sounds interesting.
It was strict tempo, and what the singers would then do was sing pop songs to strict tempo, but not just the pop songs. And I distinctly remember the first song I learned there was "The Way You Look Tonight," which was done as a quick step.
Okay, wow.
So that was, someday when I'm awfully low and the world is cold, I will feel the glow just thinking of you. That was it. Yeah.
Sorry.
That was Wake up, Barry.
Yeah.
I've sent him to sleep, folks.
I was just thinking that I wasn't expecting you to do that, and that was very special. Thank you.
Oh, okay. It was just I got carried away with my reminiscences there.
Lovely.
I learned pop songs, and then they were done strict tempo, anything that fitted in, anything that suited. But then they would have a little session on the dance floor for a little bit of a jive and everything. It was the start of orchestras, excuse me, of the orchestras introducing little sessions where people would get to jive and do the modern dancing as well.
So you'd obviously had the time with the Cyclones, and you went with the Cyril Stapleton Orchestra, which must have, and as you've evidenced, was obviously a great experience, because it was exposing you to all kinds of musical types, dancing, jazz, all those kind of things.
Yeah, it wasn't really deliberate. The fact that I went to work with a big band, it was just because, in fact, it was my brother. I'd had a wee argument with Ian, my younger brother, and he said, there's an advert here in the Musical Express, why don't you answer it? They want a singer. And I wrote and sent a photograph, and then this letter came back, to the surprise of the whole family, saying, can you be in London next Tuesday? And it was complete shock and chaos in the house, getting me ready to. They packed me off quickly to London, and all started out as a very, very offhand, very unlikely scenario, and it really does make you believe that when fate wants to work miracles, it will.
But you must have been something of a gift for them as well, because you are exceptionally musically talented in the fact that your voice goes across contralto, mezzo-soprano, right to very near the top of the soprano range. I mean, that's a huge voice.
Well, interesting that, well, at my age now, it's maybe not quite what it used to be, but I'm surprised that I still have the range. And I'm singing at the moment in the Ern Singers, Bridge of Ern choral group. And I do that just because they're local and, you know, it's a bit of fun and it's a night out on a Thursday night. And by the way, 14th of March in the North Church, if anybody wants to go along and see the Ern Singers, it'll be a good night out of
14th
music.
of March.
Yeah. Oh, that was a throwaway comment. However, I'll make sure that I've got the date right and get back to you.
Well,
yes, it is.
Well, as it happens, I love Bridge of Ern because when I first came up to Scotland, I used to stay behind the Last Cast pub.
Oh, yeah. Oh, what an ideal place to stay.
Absolutely. I could just put my hand over the fence and say to Keith, can I have a pint of this or that?
That's handy. Yeah.
Now, I'm just going to tell people how to get in touch. We've got Eve for about an hour, so if you would like to make a request or if you would like to ask her any questions, there are a couple of ways you can do it. You can phone in on 01738 440044. That's 01738 440044. Now, you can do that on a smart device as a text message. It will digitize it, and hopefully we'll be able to work out what it is you've asked her. Or alternatively, you can do it via another route. You can email us, and I've got an assistant producer standing by waiting for your emails. We've had some come in already, and the address is studio@hrperth.co.uk. That's studio@hrperth.co.uk. As I said, we've got a big audience tonight, not just from people inside the hospital, but from people all over the world. I've actually got somebody listening in Tulsa.
Oh, have you?
Believe it or not, and I'm not going to play the obvious for that because that would be ridiculous, but yeah, I've got somebody in Tulsa. Now, when you left the Cyril Stapleton Band, you went back to Manchester to be with the Nocturnes. Is that right, or have I got that completely wrong?
No, you haven't. But everything that I've done in my life is because one thing just happened to follow another. I've never actually sat down and thought, what do I want to do? And I've just kind of drifted from one thing to another. So I'm a complete fatalist in that respect. Because I'd been with Cyril on the Mecca circuit, that was how I got to know other people who worked in Mecca. And they had opened Tiffany's in Shaftesbury Avenue. They were starting to open night spots, and Tiffany's in Shaftesbury Avenue was the first one. And I went to work there, and it was after I'd left Cyril. The reason I left Cyril was because after working 6 nights a week and 2 afternoon matinees as well, he left Mecca and went on the road. And that was about 2 nights a week, probably, getting in the coach and going someplace by coach, working 2 nights a week. And I remember it was for the same money, so obviously it was better for him and for the orchestra. But I spent 5 days a week and 5 nights in my digs in London because I just wasn't. I talk about 20 going on 12. By then I was 21 going on 10 because I just couldn't go out the door. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to make friends. And I felt that I was just sitting there waiting for the next gig. So eventually I went back home. Then I realised once I was back home that I wanted to be back in London. I realised that now I was hooked and there was something missing in my life. So I went back. I think I probably made a phone call. I went back to working at Tiffany's in Shaftesbury Avenue when it opened, but I worked as a catering manager, trainee catering manager, just to get back down to town. And then the band that were on there said that the Manchester one was opening, and did I want to go and audition for that to get back to being a singer again? And that's what I did, and I met Ross Mitchell in Manchester, and also Sandra Stevens, she's been with Brotherhood of Man all her career, but back then she was just starting as well. And the two of us joined the new group, the Nocturnes, and that was for Tiffany's in Manchester. So that's how I moved to Manchester.
Well, I think on that note, we should probably have something by the Nocturnes.
Oh.
So Let's have a listen to this.
Treated so bad. Why am I treated so bad? You know I'm all alone while I sing this song. Hear my call. I've done nobody wrong, but I'm treated so bad. I'm gonna walk up to my baby's door, ask him why he don't love me no more. Hear his mom said I was to blame, but I walk on in and love him just the same, though he treats me so bad.
Why Am I Treated So Bad by the Nocturnes. So we were talking about the Nocturnes, and when Sally Stevens left, what happened then?
When Sandra
Stevens.
left, yeah.
See, what did I tell
okay.
you? What did I tell you?
Don't worry, I'm here to correct you if you go
you.
wrong.
Thank you, miss.
You'll do likewise, I'm sure.
Oh,
Because
no.
I think you've read up on me a lot more recently than I've read up on me.
Could be.
Sandra left the Nocturnes, and then Lynn Paul joined, and that was how eventually I went on to join the New Seekers. But that's maybe another story, is it, for later on? Or?
Oh, we'll get to the New Seekers in a bit. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I've got the bit with the song that you did with Roger Cook in a little while as well, Smiling Through My Tears.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, the Nocturnes. So, when did you go straight from the Nocturnes to the New Seekers, or was there a hiatus?
Oh, I did something else. I think I was with another band for a while after the Nocturnes. Oh yeah, we went to London with the Nocturnes, and then Lynn went on to be solo, and I went back to Manchester, to Tiffany's in Manchester again, to work with the band that was working there. Why? I don't know why we left the Nocturnes. I can't remember exactly why we did, but we both left the Nocturnes. I don't know. I don't think we fell out with anybody, to the best of my recollection. So, because it was when I was back in Manchester that I had a phone call from Lynn's mother.
Doreen.
Yes, gracious me. And she phoned me up, and I can remember this going into the office because this call had come in this night, and she said, there's a new group starting up, and Lynn is going to audition for it. And I thought that if you did it, the two of you could get back together again, work together again. And so I said, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And she gave me the number. It was Keith Potger's number. She said, give him a call and see if if the two of you can start working together again. And so totally separately, I mean, I hadn't seen Lynn because she was in London and I was living in Manchester. But I didn't know what had happened with her audition. But anyway, I went down to London for my audition and I got the job, but with another girl called Sally Graham, no relation to Eve Graham, but the other girl they chose was called Sally Graham, and that was the first lineup of the New Seekers.
Okay. So the first hit with New Seekers was Meet My Lord.
Gosh, yes, you're right.
Is that with Sally Graham or is that with Lynn Paul?
Sally Graham.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, not only did I know that, I've got it ready to play.
Amazing.
I have a friend who's never going to fail me, no matter how I may let him down, until the end, standing there beside me. Whatever I do, he'll always be around. That's why I like to go where the clear spring waters follow on down to where the air is cool, and there to sit and let the mountains hide me, wash away my tears in a little pool. I need my Lord way down by the river, where peace and love shine down from the sky. Need my Lord way down by the river, let all my troubles roll on by. Roll on by. I'm gonna meet my Lord way down by the river, where peace and love shine down from the sky. Meet my Lord way down by the river, let all my troubles roll on by. Once in a while, everyone gets lonely, and some of us try to make it on our own. But there's someone just waiting, like I told you, and he's the one who's gonna carry you home. So meet your Lord way down by the river, where peace and love shine down from the sky. Meet my Lord way down by the river, let all my troubles roll on by. Yeah, I'm gonna meet my Lord way down by the river, where peace and love shine down from the sky. Meet my Lord way down by the river, let all my troubles roll on by.
Meet My Lord from the New Seekers. And of course, my guest, if you've not already worked it out, is the fabulously talented Eve Graham. Now, if you want to send in a message, it's 01738 440044. That's 01738 440044. Or you can send in an email, and to email us, you will need to send that to studio@hrperth.co.uk. That's studio@hrperth.co.uk. So, Eve, we've gone to the New Seekers. We've got Lynn Paul in there now.
Yeah.
Sally Graham has left.
Okay.
And where do we go from there?
Well, I always think of the first hit as "Look What They Done to My Song, Ma." And the one that you've just played, Meet My Lord, I'd totally forgotten about that. And in fact, as it was playing, I was remembering that I think there were another couple of singles came out as well. But then we recorded Look What They Done to My Song, Ma, and we were doing a summer season, our first summer season in 1970 at Yarmouth. And the song, meanwhile, was going up the charts in America. But during that summer season, we changed the lineup because there was only myself and Marty Christian from the original lineup. And there was only myself and Marty Christian, in fact, who are on Look What They Done to My Song, Ma, along with the 3 original members. And then it changed. Lynn Paul and Peter Doyle and Paul Layton all joined the group during that summer season. We were rehearsing in the afternoon, and the new 3 members were watching the show at night, and rehearsing it in the day. And then one night we just did the switch, and all the routine, because we used to do a dance routine then, tap dancing and all sorts of things. And one night it was just a completely different band, and nobody noticed because, you know, they had to wear the other people's clothes and everything. And so we had, immediately after the summer season, we had to go to America because we had this hit. And it was with people who'd just left the group and probably felt that they'd done the wrong thing by that time.
Mm-hmm. That can often be the case, can't it?
Yeah.
Well, we are obviously going to be playing that at some point. But before we play that, I just wanted to talk to you about Roger Cook. Now, of course, Roger Cook and Roger Greenaway from Fish Ponds in Bristol, which I didn't actually know until I was doing some more research, although I was very well aware of their music over the years, because certainly late 60s, early 70s, virtually everything that was a hit seemed to be Roger Cook and Roger Greenaway. And indeed, one of their most popular songs was Something Took a Hold of My Heart, which Gene Pitney recorded, but they also recorded themselves as David and Jonathan, which is an interesting version, not as atmospheric perhaps as Gene Pitney, but you recorded a few things with Roger Cook yourself.
I did, and that was before before I was famous. We had met when I was in Manchester with the Nocturnes. Roger Cook and Roger Greenaway, as David and Jonathan, had come up and done, because not only did I work there 6 nights a week, and from like 7:30 till 2 o'clock in the morning, 6 nights a week, plus one afternoon as well, but I was doing 2 days, 2 lunchtime shows, singing backing vocals for the Simon D show, and 2 days a week as well, Tuesday and Thursday lunchtime, I was doing the Pop North, it was called. It was an hour-long lunchtime show. So I was working quite hard in those days.
You were working very hard.
Yeah. Which makes me smile when, quite a few years back now, somebody complained that they had bought tickets for a West End show, and the person that they wanted to see wasn't there because they complained that it was too much to do 6 nights a week and a matinee. And that amused me. Yes, I worked very hard, but I couldn't say no. If people said, "Oh yeah, do you want to do that?" Yeah, okay, yeah, I'd do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, David and Jonathan were on Pop North, and we got chatting, and they came into the club at night and watched the Nocturnes, and then they asked if I would do some recording, some studio work with them, and again I said yes, and did that. I think I must have taken a break or something. I can't remember how it was I had time to do it, but it was obviously maybe in a holiday time or something, because we recorded in London, and I was also at his house down in Bristol, his family home, and he did some rehearsals and some of the songs that he had just written, and
very talented. I mean, incredibly talented. And as I said before, produced so many hits that have not just been a success in this country, that have been a success internationally as well. And to listen to them being interviewed, I've listened to them being interviewed a couple of times, like you, I have to say, they are very modest, unassuming, every day.
Yeah, real people.
Exactly, real people. Now, before we play that, what you consider to be the first hit of the new Seekers, we are going to listen to you, if you don't mind me dragging you back to Smiling Through My Tears with Roger Cook.
Baby, wondering what you're doing every minute of each hour of every day that ends. Come home as you used to be. Don't stop saying you love me.
I used to think that I knew just exactly what I wanted, and I used to think that I knew just where I was going. Now you changed my pattern, and I just can't add things up right anymore.
Smiling Through My Tears from Roger Cook and my guest Eve Graham. I think was a tiny bit surprised that some of these stuff are coming out tonight.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. It's amazing. I mean, I don't have these at home, and I didn't know that had ever been released. I remember now. I was waffling on there about how that had come about, and as it was playing, I remember that what had happened, I couldn't remember when it was recorded exactly, and I came across a letter not that long ago, because I'm sorting through a lot of stuff at the moment, having lost Kevin 2 years ago. But I came across a letter, and it was from Roger, and I didn't even know I had it. I don't remember him writing to me or anything, but it's a letter from Roger saying, how sorry he was that things hadn't worked out for us to go out as a duo, because he had commitments and I was waiting, and then the New Seekers opportunity came along, and I did that instead. And that was how we this letter was saying that we were going to work as a duo and before the New Seekers. And I've never told that before in an interview because I'd forgotten about it. And it's only because that letter cropped up recently. So you heard it first here, folks.
Thank you. An exclusive. So, the New Seekers is formed. You've had your first record, so your first hit's coming along quite soon. But it wasn't just a hit here; it was also a hit in the United States as well.
Which one? Meet My Lord?
No, look what they've done to my song.
Oh, look what they've done. Yes, yes. And in fact, there was a single before that, and I only know that because I saw it on YouTube, because we were on the Andy Williams show.
Yes.
We went over to the Andy Williams show, and I was singing a song on there. I've forgotten what it was now. Come on, Barry, you're slipping.
No, I'm slipping. But
Yeah, there's something on. There's something on the Andy Williams show, and I know it was a single. It's
like
not Meet My Lord, but it's another.
hang on a minute. Let me refer to the list of. Let me refer to my research notes, which are here somewhere. Hang on a minute. Whoa, wrong one.
Sorry, listeners. All
No,
this
no, it's
research
fine.
is
No,
supposed
no.
to be done before we start.
No, it's all live stuff. So right, I'll tell you what. We'll have a little route for that in a minute.
No, it was just a thought, but
No.
but I'd forgotten that was so. There was a single came out, sung it on Andy Williams' show. Because I remember the Andy Williams show because we did one. One is the loneliest number that you ever. Yeah, and I didn't remember that we'd done a second one, and it was when I saw it on YouTube. I remembered that had been a single. But look what they done to my song, Ma, was out in Britain and in the States, and it just bubbled away for a long time, and I guess although Teach the World to Sing is the one that we're best known for, Look Ma to me is the other one that you just it's just always there.
So, did you have to keep on pinching yourself when you were in America, thinking I'm doing the Andy Williams show, I'm doing the Ed Sullivan show, I'm doing the Tonight Show? Did you not have? I'm sensing that at the time things were so busy for you that the group probably didn't even get a chance to take a breath.
You're absolutely right, and I'm not sure. I certainly don't think that we were blasé about it, but at the same time, when you're actually doing these things, you're not. It's not the same as if you were outside looking in at yourself, or if you had time to look down on the situation, you'd be going, wow, it's you're doing all these big shows. But at the time, it was just a case of where have we got to be next, and hurry up, everybody. And it was just a whirlwind of airports and hotels and theatres and TV stations, and in that sense. It's like anybody else. I mean, if they meet a big star, after about 5 minutes, you're actually just talking to another person, and I think that would be the same for anybody. That the sense of it being an unbelievable situation isn't there because. It is happening, so you're just getting on with it, and you're getting on with the job. And rehearsals can be just as boring whether you're on a great big show or a little show or what, So you've just got you just deal with it as it comes. But then look back and think about all the people that all the shows that we did and. The fact that once some of the highlights you remember years and years and years later, like when we did the Sonny and Cher show, and it occurred to me that I was taken into the wardrobe, the huge wardrobe department, and they tried me in one of Cher's dresses for a particular. Because we were doing comedy sketches with them and everything, and at the time it was just oh dear, oh yeah, well it fits, but it's about 6 inches too long, so I couldn't wear it, and they wouldn't shorten it because it was just for a one-off thing, And I look back now, and when I see Cher in her prime, in the gorgeous, it's a white dress, it's backless, and it comes way down at the front to her navel or something like that, and she looks so elegant and tall and slim in it, and it's because she's so much taller. Although the dress fitted me, I would have had to be on stilts for it to look the same as it did on her, But these are little just a girly thing that I took time to. I just took some time out to enjoy in my recollections.
And why shouldn't you? Because you did so many things. You did the Dinah Shore show. You did things. I mean, for instance, when you look at what you did, Royal Command performance. You did 3 songs on the Royal Command performance. That's unheard of now. You have to be right at the top to be doing that kind of stuff. I think Shirley Bassey was
we flew over to do that from the States, and flew back right afterwards, right after the following day. I mean, it was just, we were just so busy at that time. And I think one of the great things, looking back, is that walking into a room, for instance, Dinah Shore, not everybody maybe would remember her particularly, but she was an enormous star. And we did the show in Las Vegas, and she was on stage when we arrived, and we sort of came in. She was on stage doing a rehearsal. And I remember that we arrived in through a side door or whatever, and walked in to the wings, and we were watching, and she stopped. She stopped and said, "Hang on a minute," just stopped her rehearsal and came over. "How lovely to meet you." I mean, the fact that we were recognised by people, like all these big stars that we were working with. And then you think, gosh, they know me, and then it kind of hits you a bit, you know, when people know you. Yeah, oh, you don't know my Paul McCartney story, do you?
No, I'd like, but I want to hear it now.
Cringe!
Now you've said
cringe.
it, got to hear it.
Well,
now.
I'm jumping ahead because I had left the group. It would be 1975, and I had left the group, and I was in Los Angeles, and I was at a party. It was a big party for Swan Records, I think it was. And there were crowds moving through the aisles, and there were tables, and I was with some people, and I was following this woman that I was with, and going along, being more or less pushed along by the people behind as well. And a voice called to me from a table. There was a table of 4, and a voice called, "Hey Eve, how's Scotland?" And I turned round, and it was Paul and Linda McCartney and Bob Dylan and his wife. And I said, "Fine," and kept walking. Now, can you believe that I did that? I mean, it was obviously an invitation to at least stop for a second and speak. Yeah. And I blew it. I totally blew it. I wanted to go. When I got to sort of, as I say, I was kind of being jostled along, but heck, why didn't I elbow everybody out of the way and say, "I just want to say hello"? and I couldn't. I was just too amazed that he had actually said my name and called me by name, and I just went, "Fine."
You see, that underlines your humility as a person, because I've spoken to a few people, and everybody that I've spoken to said she's kind, she's generous, and she is modest.
Oh, is that all? Go on.
Kind, generous, modest. Well, I think kind, generous, and modest will do for starters.
Do, I think
I'd
so.
Be quite happy with that. I'd be quite happy with that.
Yeah.
Not to mention, very talented.
Clearly. That's very nice.
So, I know that we're actually supposed to be a music show, but do you know what? I don't care about that, because I have got Eve Graham in the studio with me. If you would like to ask Eve some questions, or if you want to request, well, I'm not going to do it. No, if you want to ask Eve anything, or if you want to send a request, 01738 440044. That's 01738 440044. I know we've got a really big audience tonight, all over the United Kingdom, all over, well, everywhere. We've got people listening in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Spain, you name it, they're listening. And of course, what I should also be saying is, the most important people listening this evening are, of course, our patients in the PRI. And a very good evening to you as well, because this show and this station is principally about you. But I'm really enjoying our guest this evening, and I'm sensing that she's having a good time as well. So
I am.
What we are going to do now, though, is we're going to play that first considered new Seekers hit, Look What They've Done to My Song, Ma.
Look what they done to my song, Ma. Look what they done to my song. it's the only thing that I could do half right, and it's turning out all wrong, Ma. Look what they've done to my song. Wish I could find a good book to live in. Wish I could find a good book. Well, if I could find a real good book, I never have to come out and look at what they've done to my song. Look what they've done to my brain, Ma. Look what they've done to my brain. Well, they picked it like a chicken bone, and I think I'm half insane, Ma. Look what they've done to my brain. Ils ont changé ma chanson, Ma. Ils ont changé ma chanson. C'est la seule chose que j'ai bien fait, et ce n'est pas bon, Ma. Ils ont changé ma chanson. Look what they've done to my song, Ma. Look what they've done to my song, Ma. Well, they tied it up in a plastic bag, then turned it upside down, Ma. Look what they've done to my song. Well, it's the only thing I could do half right, and it's turning out all wrong. Oh, Mama, look what they've done to my song. Oh, Mama, look what they've done to my song. Mom, look what they've done to my song. Well, it's the only thing I could do all right, and it's turning out all wrong.
Look what they've done to my song. Well, I didn't do anything to it, but I know who did. Eve Graham made that song very, very special. Look what I did there. Yeah, okay. Now, that was... We're talking about America. You were on all those chat shows. You did all those amazing things. One question I wanted to ask you, and it's kind of a bit random. There was a quote in one of the pieces I looked at that said you had a very interesting conversation with Henry Kissinger.
Yeah, I think anybody who speaks to Henry Kissinger is going to find it interesting. But it was just another thing looking back on a famous person who just took the time to speak to me. We played at the inauguration.
20th of January 1974.
Good. I was trying to remember whose inauguration it was.
Richard Nixon. Didn't last an awful lot longer after that. Nothing to do with you.
I know. Yeah. I put a blight on his career.
No, I think he did that all on his own.
Oh, well, at least he didn't put a blight on mine.
No.
But yes, it was a little sort of cocktail reception after we'd done our show at the inauguration. Yeah. And when I say interesting, I'm not sure I remember particularly that it was world shattering. I mean, I didn't give him any advice or anything like that, but just it was. When I say an interesting conversation, there's so much small talk around of people who don't have anything to talk about that I did find it interesting because it had a little bit of meat to it, you know, that I was talking to somebody sensible. I was talking to a grown-up.
Still very much with us as well. He's 94 now, but he's still going strong.
I'm catching up with him.
Oh, I think you've got a very, very long way to go from there. So just going, that's obviously 1974, so just going back just a tiny weeny bit. So I'd Like to Teach the World to Sing started off, if my research is correct, as a sampler for a commercial, potentially, which then obviously became the Coca-Cola commercial.
We recorded in New York. We did, I think, maybe 10 or 12 little commercials. They weren't exactly samplers, but they were for radio stations. They were radio commercials. So we would do a 60-second and a 30-second, and then a couple that were just even 20 seconds. And at that time that we did them, I didn't particularly notice any one standing out. I didn't notice Teach the World at that point. But people liked the commercial, and they were phoning in the radio station saying, oh, you know, like that commercial, play it again. What I do remember is being in the hotel in New York, because we were also there recording with our producer, Dave Mackay. And in the hotel, our manager, who was in London, phoned me up, and he said, a session group called the Hillside Singers have called themselves the Hillside Singers, and they have made a full-length version of this, and they've put it out commercially because the song, the commercial, is so popular. Have we got time to do that? Can you fit that in the session? And the record company turned it round and had it out within a matter of days, I think, you know, a week or something like that. And that was, we had the hit because ours overtook the Hillside Singers version, and our one went to the top of the charts in the States.
Of course, fasting forward a little bit, you got to be in Vision on the reunion of that in 1990. Is that right?
Yes. I had a call, and it was through Roger Greenaway. They had contacted Roger Greenaway, Coca-Cola, or their agents, and wondered where I was. And he contacted David Mackay, and I hadn't seen David or anything for quite a few years because I hadn't been recording. And they got in touch with me eventually anyway, and said, we'd like you to do a new commercial, the reunion commercial. And I said, well, I'm not with the New Seekers anymore. And they said, no, that's okay. We've done all the tracks. We've done the group. We just want your lead voice. So, I mean, what could I say? Yes, of course. And in fact, when I went into the studio to record the lead vocal line, it sounded pretty much as it should.
Now, I'm going to fast forward a little bit again, but it's also linked into this song. There is an absolutely delightful piece on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen, where Eve is visiting a school in New Zealand where all these kids are playing the ukulele. Now, I was originally going to play this, but I'm not going to play it. The reason why I'm not going to play it is because you have to see it and hear it to make sense of it, because the kids are playing along. They all start off at the same time, and then at some point they kind of will go off at a little tangent. And what I particularly like about you is that you step back from that and you fit into what they're doing rather than them fitting into you. And I think that was a really sweet thing to do. Those kids are so obviously enchanted. They probably hadn't got a clue who you were, but they were so enchanted by the fact that you were there and you were doing it. And one other thing I'll say is the little piece that you did to camera after that, explaining how important the song was to you, and also explaining that even though it's something you've probably heard, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of times, it's still special to somebody who hears it for the first time, or it's still a special memory for someone. And you've got, obviously, as you said, you treat it like it's a child, which is delightful.
Yeah, I was taken, it was when we were in New Zealand in 2012, and I was taken out to make a personal appearance. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't think, it's just, yes, take me there. And I was taken out to a suburban area, which was a school for poorer children, really. And they'd spent their whole season. I haven't got kids. What do you call it? When you, the whole
Term.
the whole term.
That's
Thank
it.
you. Thank
I
you.
haven't either, but
that's the one.
we got there together
Yeah.
eventually.
The whole term, learning. This had been part of their, thing they had to do. They'd learned this song, so they'd been bashing away at Teach the World for a whole term, and the climax to that was that I was going to arrive and sing it along with them. Or that they were going to sing it to me. I can't remember how they got round to getting me in amongst them. But they because first of all they asked me would I go up on stage and sing it, and they would just play along, and I said why don't I'll get down on the floor beside them. And I sat down on the floor, and they just all gathered round about me, and we sang the song. And of course, some of them were only about 5. I mean, they were
sweet.
just gorgeous little children, and they'd worked away at this song. So they knew who I was in the sense that they had been told all about me. They'd learned this as part of what they were doing, and we had quite a lot of fun there. Spent quite a long time with them there. But it was a great and humbling experience for me as well. I was just so amazed that they had persevered to learn this song, and I can't even play it myself on a ukulele.
Now we've had a couple of emails in, and I'll just get hold of those for you.
I've got 2 fans.
Yeah, we've got more than 2 fans, Eve, trust me. Eve has always been and always will be the best female vocalist ever. Who would Eve like to duet with today? Well, we're thinking about that still, Jeff. And that's Jeff from Ely in Cambridge. Very interesting, very pretty part of the country, that as well. Amazing cathedral in Ely, that's just a side issue.
Yeah.
And hi, Eve, really enjoying the show. And that's love from Mags.
That's good.
And that must be the Mags from your forum.
Yes, Mags from a forum, and Jeff, who I have known, I think, since he was about 12.
Right, okay.
Lives in Cambridge. But why didn't he ask me that the last time he saw me rather than now? Now, the thing about, and you've said to me as well, what, or somebody else had asked you to ask what was my favourite song. But I've always liked lots of different styles of music. Anything but trad jazz. I'm not a fan of trad jazz, but I like jazz. I like bluesy things, and I smoochy things. When I was young, I thought I would be a torch singer and sort of lie along a piano and But then I was young then, and that was before rock and roll.
Yeah.
And it's like you were saying earlier. When I started out, it was an age when part of the things that we were doing in the concert party was Gilbert and Sullivan and all sorts of things like that. It was before pop music. Pop music now is whatever you're told is the current trend. But there are different artists for different reasons. I mean, I wish I had a good enough voice to sing opera. But that's a different level altogether. I'm going to be doing Scots songs soon.
Yeah, tell me about
Wouldn't
that.
it be good to do a duet with Rod Stewart, like the Crooked Bobby or something like that? Wouldn't that be great?
Let's fire him an email.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, why not? Well, you can only ask, can't you?
Or what about Paul McCartney?
Yeah.
If he's forgiven me for snubbing him at that party.
Well, hopefully he's forgiven you for snubbing him, because I don't think it was on purpose. I'm sure he knows that it wasn't on purpose.
Yeah.
Now,
but me, actually, Jeff knows perfectly well that I'll sing with anybody.
I have actually heard that you're not averse
two
to getting
drinks
up at
and no, that's right.
I've
Me
heard
on the
that.
karaoke.
I've heard that.
Have you?
Oh, yes.
Oh dear.
In fact, one of our presenters here, Peter Hay, met you at one of those aforementioned parties. He did actually ask to be remembered to you, so I'm going to remember him to you. You might not remember him, but
I don't know.
no, it's fine. You meet loads of people. Don't worry about it. Right, what was I going to say? I was going to say something. Oh, yes, I was going to say...
That threw you. You're,
yes,
thinking,
indeed.
you're thinking about
I
me
know.
up at the karaoke
I know,
now.
absolutely. Well, I was thinking, yeah, indeed. I was thinking about you up at the karaoke. I'm going to have to go along to that concert with the Earned Singers, definitely. Now, what I was going to do is let everybody know how they can get hold of Eve Graham's music, because Eve has a massive back catalogue and a current catalogue as well. These are all available, or many of them are available, at scottdisc.co.uk. That's www.scottdisc.co.uk. They're also available on iTunes, and they are also available on Spotify, and you should have a look at what's on there. There is a massive amount, and it's all quality stuff. And talking about
What a good
massive...
plug. Thank you.
Oh, no, you're welcome. Talking about massive and quality, we're going to play one of Eve's favourite tracks now, which is from The Mountains' Welcome Me Home. And indeed, what we're actually going to play is The Mountains.
I'd like to build the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and...
Now, did you spot the deliberate mistake there? You did, didn't you? That was the wrong track.
No, I never
No.
heard a thing.
Ah, okay. Well, you see, I should have queued it up to track 2 and I queued it up to track 1. Do you know what? I was doing so well tonight as well. I thought, I was really going really well. I was bound to do it at some point.
You're
so-
still visualising me at a party and on the karaoke machine.
You might be right. And I know as much as you like, I like to teach the world to sing. You probably don't want to, or don't want it to. Well, that's not even English. You probably didn't want to hear it again right at this precise moment. So I'll try it again. Take 2. Here is The Mountains.
Mama can't see me get off the plane. Her eyes aren't what they used to be. Daddy can't carry my suitcase. It scares me to see him so weak. I get lost driving home, 'cause the whole town has grown. I would swear not one thing's the same, till I look out across the horizon and see my guardians unchanged. Timeless, ageless, stronger than my fear. Whatever else happens, they will always be here. When every piece of my childhood has gone and I'm alone, the mountains will be here to welcome me There'll come a time when my folks pass on, and home will be some motel. But the mountains will always remind me I haven't been left by myself. Timeless, ageless, stronger than my fear. Whatever else happens, they will always be here. When every piece of my childhood has gone and I'm alone, the mountains will be here to welcome me home. I am cradled safely in their massive arms. Timeless, ageless, stronger than my fear. Whatever else happens, they will always be here. When every piece of my
We were talking away there. In fact, we were talking away so much I almost got caught for a second time.
That's my fault. My fault.
No, that would be...
I'm trying. You're so smooth that I think I'm just trying to throw you.
Oh, that's very sweet of you.
Can I jump in a minute?
You can.
Because an email came from Las Vegas, and it's our old friend Julie Barrett who lives out there now. So, and there's a lot of you out there who know Julie as well. So, hi Julie, it's nice to hear from you. And it's really nice to know that you're listening over there.
Well, see, I did say we've got a huge audience this evening. We've got everybody now from Las Vegas to, I don't know, Saskatchewan. Not on Earth, maybe think it's Saskatchewan. I don't even know where Saskatchewan is. I think it's Canada, isn't it?
Yeah, the middle of Canada.
Okay. Bizarre.
Been there a long time ago. Yeah.
Well, that track that you just heard was from one of Eve's currently available albums, The Mountains Welcome Me Home. And as I said before, to get hold of any of Eve's music, and please do get hold of it because it is so special, www.scottdisc.co.uk, obviously Spotify, and obviously you can go to the iTunes store as well. But do make sure that you have a look and get hold of Eve's work because it's very, very well worth it. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of a step back and go back to 1972 to the Usher Hall, Edinburgh.
Yes. Yeah.
And what actually, funnily enough, led me on the circuitous route to inviting you to come here was I was doing some research on something completely unrelated, and it played into a YouTube clip where the announcer was saying, and the United Kingdom entry is coming up now, and lots of popular support, special support for local, something along those lines, local girl Eve Graham is from Perth. I thought, Perth? I live in Perth. I used to love the New Seekers. I know that song. And I didn't realise. So obviously that then led me to sending you an email. Now, 1972, it came second. Your musical director was David Mackay. And the winning song was Après Toi by Vicky Leandros. But I have to say, Beg, Steal or Borrow, I think, is still one of the outstanding songs from Eurovision from years gone by. Mm-hmm. What's your perception of Eurovision then, not necessarily the songs, but the production values? What's your perception of it?
I've got absolutely no idea. I don't watch it.
Fair enough. Well, okay, I'll tell you what I was thinking.
Well, I know there's a lot of people that love Eurovision, but anything like that, like Strictly and voice things and all that, I don't enjoy any of that sort of thing. And the other thing though is to kind of qualify that. When we did Beg, Steal or Borrow for Eurovision, Beg, Steal or Borrow was a typical pop song of the day. And for many years afterwards, you were getting songs that were like that when musical style had changed. So it ended up whether, that you were listening to a Eurovision song rather than a current song. Yeah. It was like they had to be written for Eurovision because they weren't suitable for anything else. I don't know, and that's maybe unfair because I know a lot of people really enjoy it, and I wonder if they're maybe enjoying it for the competition rather than the music. And of course, it was supposed to be a song contest. Originally, it was a song contest, and now it's got nothing to do with the song. It's who can spend the most money on the production. Exactly. It ends up being a show. So it's not a song contest. It was the writers who got the accolades in the beginning, not the artists. And the brief, in fact, back then was that the brief for the writers were you have to write a song for the New Seekers. That was what they had to do because we were the ones who were going to be representing the country, and so that channeled their talents to provide a specific thing like they've been told to do. It's like open your test paper now and see what the question is. Write a song for the New Seekers, and that was what they all had to do. But now it's just put on a show and put some music to it, Well,
it's interesting that you've said all of that because in a sense you just went exactly where I was thinking anyway, which I'll be honest, I'm not a Eurovision fan anymore. I used to be. I sort of lost interest in it when it became highly politicised to the point where it was no longer about the song anymore. It's no longer about it. It was all too big, too political, too
Yeah,
overperformed. In the days when you did it, it was all about the song. Things were smaller. The orchestra, the musical director would come out, he'd bow to the audience, and you felt as though you were all included in it, where it doesn't feel like, now it feels as though it's, I don't know, it's difficult to explain.
Well, it's just
too
a
big.
show.
Yeah.
You're back there watching a show. You know, you're in the audience, and you could be watching an old movie on a big screen. You know, a big spectacular. And it's like the way Strictly Come Dancing. It kind of went the same way as well. It's arguable whether they've still got. They're still whether they've come back round to judging people on their dancing. But because the public have the final vote, it does tend to be the most popular person rather than the best dancer to a great extent. But the Eurovision is now a great show. People want to watch it, but I think they're watching a spectacular show rather than judging song. I bet people don't even remember who the songwriters are that win. They might know the artist that did it, but they won't know the songwriters.
No.
So it's not really about the song, is it?
No, not anymore. Exactly that.
It's
Exactly.
changed.
Yeah.
But okay, maybe they just call it Eurovision. It's not a song contest anyway, so fair enough.
No,
But it's not the same.
It's interesting though. I've told obviously quite a lot of people. In fact, I've told as many people as I possibly can that I'm doing this interview tonight because I wanted people to know about it. But it's interesting how many people, friends, that suddenly contacted me and said, "Oh, can I pop in and help?" I said, "Well, help with what?" Eurovision fans. So no, you can't, because it's not what it's about. But it's interesting how that happens. You only got to say Eurovision and somebody that was involved in Eurovision, they get very, very excited about it. But anyway, I was digressing. It's a bit gossipy, this, so tell me to shut up if it's too gossipy. But the notes I've got suggest that Lynn Paul and Peter Doyle at the time of Eurovision were seeing each other.
Oh yes,
they were seeing each other.
yes, yeah.
Because when you watch it, she's got a cheeky little smile on her face, and he's got a cheeky little smile on his face when they're singing to each other during that song.
Yeah.
So,
oh yes, they were a couple, and that was partly why that was done as a duet with the two of them. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll briefly move off of Eurovision Song Contest, and we will hear from that. We'll hear the live version of that as it was broadcast on the night from the Usher Hall in Edinburgh.
In this Edinburgh audience. Particular Scottish backing for Eve Graham. She comes from Perth. So here goes for the United Kingdom.
You know I'll beg, steal or borrow, but I'll bring you love. I look at you and I see what I've been looking for. Now it's very clear to me we should be together. You make me feel I could reach for the impossible. And knowing how much you care, I'll be there forever. You know I'll beg, steal or borrow to
Beg, Steal or Borrow from 1972. Now, if you listen to the German broadcast version of that, at the end of it, the announcer goes, Wunderbar, Wunderbar.
Amazing what you can do with the internet nowadays, isn't it?
It is indeed. Did you have a nice party after that, or can't you too long ago to remember?
Oh, it was the usual thing when the other acts were on. Backstage, they're saying, "Oh, gather round, look at the screen. You've got to look interested." And when the voting was on, and I sloped off to the bar because I couldn't stand there and go, "Oh, hooray! Oh, boo! Oh, hooray!" And I just couldn't do all that, So I just so I had my own party started before anybody else. But no, we were whisked back down to the hotel in fairly short order because we got into trouble from the riot police in Edinburgh because we were staying at the Caledonian on the corner there, and the people were blocking the streets. The crowds were right across the streets on the Saturday, and was it a Saturday? And we were told by the police to keep away from the windows, and because at first I think we maybe waved from the window or something like that. It was like the Queen, and the streets were blocked. It stopped the traffic. They had to get out the police on horses. And it had happened because we'd been for 6 weeks. We'd been in London doing the build up to the Eurovision contest by singing the final 6 songs, one each week. And prior to that, we'd just come back from America, where we'd had the hit with "Teach the World" over the Christmas period. So we had fans we hadn't had before we left the country the previous year, and it just all escalated in our absence. And all of a sudden we came back. We had no protection. We had a roadie or whatever, because right after that, the Eurovision, the following day, we then went in our little car down to Newcastle, I think, was the first gig. We were starting a tour. And I remember our manager saying, don't panic. We were sitting in the car with him, and people, they were rocking the car. All the fans were rocking the car. We couldn't get out the car to get into the stage door. And we had to hire a bunch of heavies to look after us after that.
That must have been terrifying.
Seeker mania, they called it in the press. Yeah,
because I've read in some of the notes that it wasn't unusual for young men to camp outside of hotels, or to even try to get in hotel corridors, try and camp outside of your rooms.
Yeah.
No, not good. Right, so 1974, moving on a little bit from there, so you decide that perhaps you've had enough. You've all had enough for a little while.
We just never got a break. We never seemed to have any time to ourselves. And again, it's not being blasé. It was just, we never had a chance to stand back and look and see how famous we were. But I do remember we were on Top of the Pops every week for a while. And I went up to Scotland to visit my family. And I had to come back. I had to fly down for the day, whatever it was, that we were doing. Was that a Tuesday or Tuesday? The charts used to come out, I think, and then you would know whether you were going to be on Top of the Pops. Yeah. And so we didn't know in advance, and then we're told, yes, you're on. And we were on week after week, and there was never a chance to get away. And one week I didn't come home. I didn't come back. For the show, and the 4 of them did it without me. And then Marty went away on holiday to someplace in Europe, and we did the show without him.
Okay.
So we were starting to kind of let it slip a wee bit, I suppose, and it wasn't really through the fact that we took the fans for granted or anything like that, but we just didn't have any time off. They worked us to death, which I think was a mistake, because we probably would have lasted a bit longer if we'd had just a wee bit time to stand back and enjoy ourselves a little bit more.
Well, to use some unbroadcast like language, you were knackered.
That's it in a nutshell.
So, yeah, all right. So you were when you obviously it was all very nicely done. It was organically done because you had a farewell album, you made farewell messages and all those kind of things. So it's
I
very
stuck
nicely.
firmly to the contract. I had
Yeah.
to give 6 months' notice,
Yeah.
and I said that I was going to leave in 6 months. And then, in fact, not that long ago, I saw an interview on television where Lynn said that she was upset with me because I was leaving. But in fact, I think she rewrote history a wee bit there, because I was leaving the group. The boys had decided that they wouldn't replace me because Lynn had the reason Lynn had the lead on the last 2 singles was because it was getting a bit difficult.
Yeah.
It was a bit them and us kind of thing. And in America, they were starting to bring records out that said Eve Graham and the New Seekers.
Right.
And I decided to leave because I was being ostracised, to put it frankly.
Yeah.
But Lynn would then have been the lead singer, and they weren't going to replace me, so she could have had the boys backing her, and she would have been the New Seekers. But she saw an opportunity to leave as well and go solo. She didn't want to stay in the group. So the New Seekers would still have been going if she had decided to stay. But for me, I was finding it too difficult. When we went anywhere, when we went to our apartments in Los Angeles, the rest of them stayed in one apartment block, and I stayed in another one. I stayed with in the same block as a couple of friends that I had over there, and it was just the way that it went. You know, I had nothing in common with any of them really, and we didn't socialise. Lynn and Peter, of course, were a couple. But then when Peter Doyle left, Peter Oliver joined, and she immediately got engaged to him. So I still ended up without a female friend.
Okay.
And you know, so I don't know. It just the personal side of it just wasn't there. There was no social life, and we were working all the time. So it just wasn't working. So anyway, I went back over to Los Angeles because Mike Kerb, who head of MGM there, he said, "Come over, we'll do some recordings with you." And so I went over and I did it. And it was at the time that he was starting a new record label, and I kicked my heels there for about 3 or 4 months while they were putting together this record deal with the Warner Curb label. Mm-hmm. And the Warner Curb label didn't get set up for about another year after that, but eventually I came back because I got a bit fed up, so I went back home. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point you decided to reform. They all got together again.
Yeah, I was approached by a guy called Jerry Purcell, who was a New Yorker. He suggested to the boys that they reform the New Seekers. And Marty and Paul by then were working with Danny Finn, as he was known, Kevin. And they asked me if I would join, and they had another girl called Kathy Ray that they were working with. And I said, well, yeah, I'm not doing anything else. So I joined the group, and we went on for another 2 years, during which time Kevin and I got closer, got engaged, and then in 1978 we left. And again, it was because the first time round we were getting the best songs from the best songwriters. But I felt in that period, 1976 to 1978, even though we were successful, it was never ever going to be the same as it was first time. And Marty and Paul wanted to have all their own songs recorded, and a lot of them I felt weren't quite as good as, the standard wasn't the same as it had been before. No reason, maybe, not to carry on, other than I just kind of felt like been there, done that, I don't want to do it anymore, and we left.
So two of them bought the rights to the New Seekers, is that right?
Yeah, Marty Christian and Paul Layton, who I believe still own the name. The name, of course, that's the magic, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but I suppose when you left, you gave, again, proper notice to leave. And
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I gave it in the contract, it was 6 months' notice. So I gave proper notice to leave. And when we left, we had a deal with a record company, Kevin and I had. And we recorded a duet, but we couldn't get out of our contract, even though we'd given proper notice. It got to the end, and the solicitors dragged their heels, and they wouldn't release us from the record contract. And by the time we got all that sorted out, it kind of all kind of drifted away a bit, you know.
That must have left a fairly nasty taste.
Yes, it did. It did at the time, because we were enthusiastic, Kevin and I, about moving on. Although we did, you know, looking back now, I see that it didn't matter. It mattered in the sense that we wanted to try and use what we had done as a springboard, and you know, for a career for ourselves. But we actually still enjoyed what we were doing, because we went to places. We went to the Far East because there was just two of us. We had no baggage, you know.
No.
We went and we did an act in the Far East. We got married. We had a 3-week honeymoon in Singapore. We were working every night, but it didn't matter.
Well, there's a lovely quote that says you had a Volvo, an amplifier, and a guitar.
That's it.
And you were happy with that?
That was it. Yeah. It was great. I think when I look back at it, I was a lot happier. The frustration, I think, when I left the group was, as you say, leaving a bitter taste, because you felt that your career had been reined in.
Well, it's injustice.
And that seemed a bit unfair. However, when I look back, I was so much happier just working with Kev, just the two of us. No hassle, no arguments all the time. One wants one thing done and one wants to do it another way. And the rehearsals were torture when it was the whole group, and you know, the two of us, it was more easygoing, and it was, you know, the pressure was off, so it was good.
Right. Well, we're going to move forward, and we're going to have some more music now. We're going to have some more of your up-to-date music, and Mags mentioned this to me in a message earlier on today, and she said that she absolutely loves this song, and so do I now. I've heard it. It's called I'm Blown Away.
I've been romanced and dined and danced, crazy nights and wild times, but life has lost its mystery, and love is blind and cannot find me. I'm blowing away, and shadows take my love and
Beautiful song. I'm blown away. And I've got 2 albums in front of me now from Eve Graham. I've got The Mountains Welcome Me Home and Till the Season Comes Round Again. Those are 2 of her more recent titles, but there are a number of titles available on the Scott Disc website, which is www.scottdisc.co.uk. And for those of you that are not familiar with Scott Disc, they champion lots of different Scottish artists, from people who play all kinds of different music. We've got Lena Martell as one of their is in their stable of artists, plus a whole variety of other things as well. But what they also very interestingly do, and I'm going to pay you another compliment in a minute, it's all compliments tonight.
I love it.
You are one of the best lip syncers I've ever seen, because I know when they do that stuff outside,
Yeah.
it can't be done obviously live. It has to be It's amazing. It's amazing. Your DVD is incredible. So it's not just about the music on scottdisc.co.uk, it's also about the DVDs as well. But if you want to download music from Eve Graham, you can do that obviously by visiting Spotify and also by visiting the Apple Store as well. So Eve Graham is having an incredible career. So we've moved on to 1978, and now you're moving around the world with your husband, Kevin,
Yeah.
who's also a very talented fairground designer as well. Was a very talented fairground designer.
Yeah, around about the time that we got married, also he had been approached to do some music for a ride in a park in Belgium, and a theme park. And through meeting up with these people, he worked a lot then for over the next year or two, while we were still working as a duo. He was writing and recording music, and I got involved as well because I had to sing bird voices, and they'd trick the voices and everything, and for all the animated figures in the parks, in the theme parks. And he showed a flair for scripts and storylines for children's rides and so on. Got more and more involved in the theme park business, and eventually one day he left me on stage on my own.
Nice.
It was almost like that. No, we were in the middle of a Max Boyce tour, and he had to make a final decision to go to Dallas to the trade show, because it was either join the company or not. And Max was great about it. We said, look, what if if I was left just as a solo artist to do the rest of the tour? And he said fine. And so we rehearsed the show with the band that backed me and just me. It was almost like the beginning of the New Seekers when we changed the lineup in the middle of a summer season. It was the same sort of thing. And he went away to Dallas. That was the start of him being full-time in the theme park design business. And that's what he did right up until the time that we moved back to Scotland. Which now is about 14 years ago.
So you spent some time in Essex.
Yeah.
How did you end up in Essex?
Well, because that's where the company was who did the theme park design. And so we moved over there. And because he was working full-time there. And the work that I was doing, I was working maybe to support somebody I was with Max for a while, and then Cannon and Ball, I did a few tours with them, Jean Pitney, other artists where I would maybe do the first half of the show, concert shows. And that was what I preferred to do, where a major artist would put the bums on seats, and there'd be a really good lighting and sound and a good band and everything like that. And so all I had to do was turn up and sing the first half of the show. I've never done pubs and clubs, and I had never wanted to do that. I like these concert venues, and so that's what I did. But I was never good, as you can sort of tell from my whole story. One thing led to another, and I would just be a fatalist and kind of just go along with what was happening. So I didn't actually go out and look for work. So inevitably, it kind of got less and less over the years. And it got to be too difficult to get myself rehearsed and in good condition for the shows, and eventually I decided I didn't want to do it anymore.
Fair enough.
And well, I was getting on a bit as well. Anyway, Kev said, "Let's move up to Scotland, back to Scotland. You know, it's a good place to retire because his parents had both died and he had no brothers or sister. Excuse me. So we moved back up, and we ended up in Crieff, and it was 40 years to the week since I had left Perth that we moved back up. So it was just timely.
Obviously, Scotland in your heart, because why wouldn't it be? I have to say it's the happiest place I've ever lived in my life, bar none.
Yeah.
And that's not against England. It's not meant to be against England, but I have to say that I have been welcomed. I have made friends. I have done things in Scotland that I would never have probably even been able to do in England, or where I was living in England. So I can see why. But I've always had connections here as well. I was going to tell you earlier on that you'll probably know the Fulford Inn at Smar Glen. That's near
Oh
Crieff.
yes, yeah, I know.
Well, my business partner's friends have had it's been in their family for 110 years.
Oh really?
Something like that. It's now just about golfing, but
I've been there once for lunch.
yeah.
It's when we lived in Crieff a few years back. Yeah, we moved to Crieff because we just saw a house on the internet. And more or less bought it that way. It was to be near Perth, which is, you know, I still have my two brothers and families living in Perth, and the house at Crieff was a 5-bedroom house, and we were moving from a big house. We thought, well, we'll just move, lock, stock and barrel, and then we'll look for a cottage or something like that once we're there. And we ended up staying in Crieff for 10 years, and then moved to Abernethy 4 years ago. And did the house the way that we wanted it. It was to be our retirement home, but unfortunately God had other plans, and Kevin died 2 years ago.
It was about now as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we were going to talk about David Mackay. So David Mackay contacted you in about 2004, 2005 to do some more recordings?
Did he? Yeah,
Sort
yes,
of, yeah.
yes,
Yes, Barry, yes.
Yeah. Well, we'd been friends on and off over the years, and in fact, you've just jogged my memory. We had been friends over the years, and I would often go in and Kevin, we would go over to his place and do sessions, backing vocals for other artists and things like that. We did a few things. In fact, one of the things we did was. Quite a number of years ago, Dennis Lawson had a TV series where he was a DJ, and there were these little, what do you call them? The little bites, little sound bite thing, musical sound bites for his program, you know. Yeah. And so we recorded all of that. Yeah.
Jingles.
So I did all that. Yeah, little jingles. Yes, jingles.
Get there in the end. We've been jingle
free tonight. I got famous through a jingle, and I couldn't even think of the word.
Don't worry. I sometimes can't remember what my name is. So.
Yeah. Anyway, we did. We did a lot of stuff for Dave over the years, so you know we were always in touch. But any recording I've ever done, I've always wanted to do with him because he gives me confidence. He gives me confidence because if I'm singing bad, you should hear the 4-letter words that he calls me. You know, he will always be listening and making sure that what I do. It gives me confidence to sing because I know that if it's not good enough, he'll stop me and say, do it again.
That's trust.
Oh, yeah, I totally trust him. Yeah. And a song picker, I mean, when I first heard Look What They Done to My Song, Ma, I thought he was crazy. I thought, what is this? What's it all about? And yet it was a hit, you know. And he's always been a good song picker.
And he has produced some huge stars over the years.
Well, I'm waiting in line at the moment. He's finishing Bonnie Tyler's album, and he's working with Rod Stewart. And I don't know if it's a secret or not, but Bonnie Tyler and Rod Stewart are going to be doing a duet, I think, on her album. I think that's probably what prompted me to say I want to do one of them too. But
So why don't you phone up and say,
so when he's finished
Dave?
with that, then he'll get round to me, and that'll be about mid-April.
So why don't you phone up and say, Dave,
Yeah,
I'd like to do a duet
David.
with Rod Stewart,
Yeah, yeah.
David.
I don't think it'll be up to Dave. I think Sir Rod will, does what he wants to do.
Yeah, I'm sure he probably does. So you're going to be doing new music with him as well soon,
I'm going to do new stuff. Yeah.
when he can fit you in.
Yeah. No. We're talking all the time about what songs we're going to do. I'm going to do a couple of Scots songs. The plan after these ones that you've mentioned that are on Scott Disc, the plan with Scott Disc was to do an album of Scott's songs, and I'd still like to do a whole album, but these days it's just you do a couple of tracks and they go out there. They just go up online.
Yeah.
So so a physical album is maybe something, I don't know, I might be long gone before they get back round to doing that.
Oh, I don't
sort
know.
of thing.
Things are coming full circle again.
But
with
whatever
these
I do
things.
will still be on Scott Disc.
Yeah.
I've got a very good relationship now
Yes.
with that company, and Dave will be producing because we want these arrangements, because even the Scott songs, when David's done his arrangements to them, I'm really going to be quite well. In fact, that on there I'd already done the Skyboat song as well on one of the albums I'd done already. I've done a couple of Scott songs already.
Well, I could be really, really cheesy at this point and go into a line that says, of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine, which I won't do that, but I am going to play your version of As Time Goes By.
Oh.
Hello, Sam. Do you remember the song? Play it, Sam. As time goes by, they still say I love you. No matter what the future brings, as time goes by. You must remember this. A kiss is still a kiss. A sigh is just a sigh. The fundamental things apply as time goes by. And when two lovers woo, they still say I love you. On that you can rely. No matter what the future brings, as time goes by. Moonlight and love songs, never out of date. Hearts full of passion, jealousy and hate. Woman needs man, and man must have his mate. That no one can deny. It's still the same old story. A fight for love and glory, a case of do or die.
Well, that was wonderful. As Time Goes By, originally, of course, from the film Casablanca with Dooley Wilson. So that was where of all the gin joints and all the towns in all the world she walks into mine came
Yeah.
from. I've just been waiting to say that. We're not going to go into quotes from other films like, I don't know, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane or anything like that. People would like me to do that, but
No,
no.
I didn't sing a song from that. So
Blanche, eat your din-dins. Now, Eve Graham, what's coming up for you soon in the next few weeks?
Well, oh dear, yes, Vamos. We had the event last year at Perth Racecourse, but the weather was atrocious. It's in May, and hopefully the weather will be better this May anyway. But this year it's at the Station Hotel, so it's a weekend of music. There will be artists coming across from the States. From Alabama and sort of Nashville and Muscle Shoals. Some of the artists from over there will be flown across, and it's just going to be great because the hotel will have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and a marquee in the big. There's a big garden at the side there as well, you know. So it should be a really great event. I'm looking forward to it. I enjoyed it last year. And the sound and everything was great, but it wasn't so pleasant. I think I was doing it in the rain, as I remember. But so it's going to be so much better doing it indoors.
Yes, I think it was in the rain at the racecourse, which wasn't so good. I'm just having a look through all of the email requests that we've had this evening. I'm sorry that we've not managed to get to all of them, or this might be one or two that we've not managed to get to at all, which I do apologise for ahead. It's just unfortunately one of those things that...
We've talked too much.
Yeah, well, no, but I don't think people mind that. I don't think people mind that. Now, unusually, before we play our last song, I'm going to play something that... isn't one of your records tonight, actually, but that's actually fine. We're going to play this because we were, of course, talking about Roger Cook and Roger Greenway earlier on. So this is the track that I was talking about earlier on, which, of course, is the famous track from Gene Pitney, and Something's Got a Hold of My Heart.
Something's gotten hold of my heart, keeping my soul and my senses apart. Something's gotten into my life, cutting its way through my dreams like a knife, turning me up, turning me down, making me smile and making me frown. In a world that was small, I once lived in a time that was peace with no trouble at all. But then you came my way, and a feeling unknown shook my heart, made me want you to stay. All of my nights and all of my days. Yeah, I gotta tell you now, something's gotten
Something's Got a Hold of My Heart by Gene Pitney, of course. Well, my guest this evening has been the inimitable Eve Graham. It's been an absolute delight to have you here, Eve.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you very much. I can't believe we've sat here for 2 hours nearly talking, but you know, you've prompted me. You've brought back a lot of memories to me as well, because you've done all your research. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Now, we're going to close the show. We're going to leave you in peace now. You are, of course, listening to Hospital Radio Perth, and it's been great pleasure to have your company, not just obviously in the hospital tonight, but outside of the hospital. And you can, of course, listen to it at hrperth.co.uk. Do not forget that Eve's music is available at scottdisc.co.uk. It's also available on Spotify. It's also available on the Apple App Store as well. Not the Apple App Store, iTunes. That's where I was going with that. And don't forget to look out for Eve at the Vamos Festival, which is again...
May the 11th to the 13th in the Station Hotel in Perth.
And if you tap in Vamos Perth into Google or any other popular search engine, I think you will find...
There's a lot on Facebook, I think, but I don't do
tons,
Facebook.
Tons, no, don't blame you. Facebook can be a nightmare for anybody. So, it's been absolutely great to have you, as I've said, and we're going to end this evening with a wonderful duet that Eve did with her late husband Kevin. It's Ocean and Blue Sky.
They should have called you ocean. You're wild as the sea, and with their emotion, you do things to me.
They should have called you blue sky. Your eyes are so blue. You're my blue sky. I look up to you.
We'll always be together, and we'll be free. Ocean and blue sky, you and me. Have you ever been lonely?
Only when you're not around.
I need you to hold me.
I'll never hold you down.
You make loving so easy. I'm at ease with you.
You know how to please me.
You please me too. Should have called you ocean. You're wild as the sea, and with every motion, you do things to me.
They should have called you blue